First, let me say this. I have absolutely no problem with people genuinely not liking a game, but the key word is genuinely. But when you say you don't like a game by using words and expressions cloaked in typical pathetic fanboy rhetoric and talking points, of course, I'm going to see it for what it is. You see, sad little fanboys can't resist showing you who they really are because, ironically, they want people to feel their disdain for a company, a platform, a game, or a piece of gaming hardware. The transparency is practically built into the fanboy culture. The whole idea is to communicate a high degree of dysfunctional hatred for a gaming company or a gaming product. We all know people who don't like, for example, horror or sci-fi films. But how often do we hear people express their dislike for these sorts of films by directly attacking the films themselves or anyone affiliated with them? The answer is we don't, because that's not normal. In fact, it's totally expected to run into gamers who probably won't like Starfield or certain games in general. For example, I absolutely fell in love with Red Dead Redemption 2. I got sucked into the world. I loved hunting, hiking, camping, fishing, or just going for a nice ride on horseback, and even just standing there looking up at the sky at night. For me, the world was filled with all sorts of things to do. But for others, it was a boring waste of time. People like Greg Miller of Kinda Funny Games expressed his complete disappointment with the game.
And I think one of the most famous stories of that is Red Dead Redemption 1.
Right.
How are you playing this game?
Do you want me to tell the story of Red Dead 1, or are we assuming everybody knows it?
I
assume they do too. All right, cool. I mean, this game didn't click with me. It hasn't clicked with me, and I feel like it's just the fact that personally, and this is a personal thing, because I'm not going to sit here and tell you the game isn't good, that it isn't, doing amazing things. The world isn't awesome. It isn't diverse and complex. For me, Red Dead Redemption 2 hasn't given me a reason to care about the narrative.
I couldn't find the video of him exactly quoting this, but I clearly remember Greg Miller also saying that he found RD2's world boring and there was nothing to do. But this wasn't my experience at all. Aside from the activities I already mentioned, I frequently encountered people asking for help, bounty hunters, and armed robbers. But I understood that the game wasn't for everyone. And especially at the beginning, the game was indeed a slow burn. It took a while for the game to take off. But honestly, I even enjoyed that. If I have anything negative to say about Red Dead Redemption 2, it's that the aim mechanic was atrocious. But here's where bias begins to stick its head out. You see, Greg Miller is a huge Kojima fan. When Kinda Funny panel members kept harping on how insufferably slow Death Stranding is, he immediately came to the game's defense.
Kojima didn't have to answer to anyone really and was like, him and the team are like, I want to do something weird, and man, is it weird. But you, like maybe a good book or good movie, you can't do part of it. I would say you need to play this game for like 50 hours before, in my personal opinion, if you really want to judge it. I wouldn't judge it based on the first 5 hours because it is a slog intentionally.
Andy, is this game fun?
For me right now, yes, absolutely. Like I'm to the point where I was just telling Tim, I wish Outer Worlds wasn't out because I'm loving Outer Worlds.
Yeah.
And I want to play that game more, but I'm really enjoying Death Stranding. At the start of it, no. I wasn't finding any fun with it until I got maybe about 10 hours in or so.
This is the same thing. But I'm sorry. But with Red Dead 2 last year, if you remember, I was like, this is art. And I'm glad it exists. And I know it's not for me and it's not connecting with me. Death Stranding is the complete opposite for me, where I love this game. And from the onset, I was in. Like, I didn't have the moment of, I thought it is slow. I didn't have the moment of, like, when I was mad at Red Dead being slow, it was mad at, why can't I fucking run and camp? I just want to get over there. Let me get over there, right? That's not what Death Stranding is doing, right? This is a pace thing.
But before moving on, I think it's important to end on one note, and that is the fact that Red Dead Redemption 2 and Death Stranding will always be considered gaming masterpieces. I have absolutely no experience reviewing games, but that doesn't mean that as a gamer, I can't tell you how I feel about Starfield as a gamer personally. My opinion of Starfield is based on what the game is, not what I wanted or expected it to be. The good news is the few things that probably would have disappointed me, I already knew about them, so by the time the game was launched, I was pretty much okay with them. For example, not being able to manually enter a planet's atmosphere to land on my own. The 1,000 mostly empty planets don't bother me for two reasons. One, I've known about them for what seems like over a year now. Two, I don't need to visit those planets because even without them, there is an overwhelming number of things to do in Starfield. I'm no tech expert, but in my opinion, the game looks great, especially considering the size of the game. I have most of my settings set to ultra and the game runs fine. Is it the most beautiful game I've ever seen? No, but a beautiful painting doesn't need to be the most beautiful painting you've ever seen in order to be a beautiful painting. Personally, I'm loving the game, but some of the same reasons that I'm loving it are some of the same reasons that some don't like it. Well, at least certain parts of it. Take, for example, Alana Pierce. She said that she would like for the game shooting to be more like Call of Duty. On the flip side, I would have hated that because the Call of Duty snap-aim mechanic makes shooting too easy. That is, in my opinion. Now they've added a slow-mo shooting mechanic, which to me makes it even easier. But on the other hand, the shooting isn't as horrible as the shooting in Red Dead Redemption 2. It's somewhere between Call of Duty and Red Dead Redemption, which I like. I also like the fact that, at least in the default setting, the game doesn't allow friendly fire. Shoot your companions enough and they will fall. The flight combat is great because it's harder than an arcade style, but easier than a space combat simulator. Once you get accustomed to it, it becomes second nature. I also like the choice to engage in either first or third person space combat. But if you like more of an arcade style space shooter, you will be disappointed. But I think the game should come with an option to navigate the planet sort of like Outer Worlds for people who may feel that the space combat is a little too tedious, or at least the player should be able to easily avoid enemies while in flight. To me, the game is like a huge steampunk style Mass Effect, but not near as confined. I visited 3 locations on Crete. I reached each of them on foot and did not run into a wall. Each of these locations were a pretty good distance from each other. Some say they think Starfield has a slow start. This is true, however, Starfield's slow burn start isn't near as slow as Red Dead Redemption or Death Stranding. In fact, at the beginning of Death Stranding, one could easily forget they're even playing a video game. Greg Miller and the co-host at Kinda Funny Games stated how long it takes for Red Dead Redemption 2 to finally get started. After 20 hours of gameplay, Greg stated that he still wasn't quite into the game. It just wasn't clicking for him.
I remember playing it for one night, and I'd put in an hour here and then an hour later on that night. And I walked in and I just felt like, man, the game just feels slow to me.
But yeah, it just doesn't work for me in terms of a narrative structure.
Before showing these clips, I'd just like to mention that I personally love the beginning of Red Dead Redemption 2. The last thing I'll say is this. The best way to know if you like a game is to play it. The second best way is to watch gameplay. There is no such thing as a game that is for everyone, so there's no problem with not liking Starfield. The problem is if you allow your dislike for a game to motivate you to attack others because they dare to like a game that you don't like. It takes extremely high levels of condescension to expect others not to like something simply because you don't like it. If you don't like a game, then simply play something else. Gamers are eating good right now. There are tons of games to choose from. The only real problem is we can't find time to play all of them. Well, hey, look guys, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it right there. If you aren't subscribed, please take care of that, because that is a problem. And oh, by the way, please like the video because believe it or not, that does help out a lot. But until next time, stay safe.